Starting when I was 8 or 9 years old, I was nudging my parents to get us a piano because I really wanted to play piano. And finally, when I was 10 years old in 4th grade, we got a piano, and it was delivered while I was at school. So I'm walking home from the bus stop, and as I get to the front door, there is this incredible music coming out of the house. And that was the first time that I knew that my grandmother was an accomplished pianist. She died when I was 12 years old, so I have a child's knowledge of my grandmother. But she lived with us full-time while I was growing up, and she was actually our daytime caregiver.
Her life centered mostly around the family, because for years she didn't have any family. She cooked, she shopped, she made sure that the kids are wherever they are meant to be at a certain time. She was the backbone of the home. I know her because her daughter, Loni, was my very best friend. My parents became friendly with Loni parents to the point that we socialized and we spent summer vacations in the Austrian countryside.
I knew she'd been in the camps. I knew she had the number tattooed on her arm, but she really didn't talk about her past. She was a woman that looked at today and tomorrow rather than looking backwards.
About Theresienstadt, no, not at all. She may have mentioned just, you know, that her husband was so sick and something like that, but not really. I have the feeling that what saved her, although she never told me that, what saved her, I think, was the fact that she could sew, and she was repairing soldiers' uniforms and stuff like that.
As we were cleaning out my father's house after he passed away a few years ago, in the corner of a closet, Susan found a purse. Well, immediately you had her transport papers to and from Theresienstadt. You had her whole life history in terms of the ketubah, the Jewish marriage contract. You had her birth certificate, my grandfather's birth certificate. So as soon as you start seeing those documents, you realize that this is something pretty special. In the steamer trunk, we had a variety of things, and it still had all the markings for Camilla Gottlieb and clearly going to New York from Europe. As to why she kept these things, you know, I can only speculate. Obviously, it was a big part of her life's story. She was clearly a very organized person, and I think the reason that she had the satchel together was that as she made her travels around Vienna to Theresienstadt, back to Vienna, eventually to the United States, that was one thing that linked her past, present, and future.
Well, the documents were, to me, another manifestation of what the Holocaust was about, because it described the life of one person who endured more than anyone like me did, or my family. We escaped in time, but millions of Jews have had to experience and how they were mistreated. Well, there are about 500 documents, almost exactly 500 documents, and it took a year and a half or 2 years to go through them all. So I spent every day doing at least 2 or 3 letters, if I could do that many. I found it a fascinating collection of letters because Camilla was a very average woman. She was no intellectual, she was not artistic, she was speaking from the heart. There was always an emotional impact that these letters had.
One thing that I found before we had the satchel, still as a child growing up, was her Judas star that she wore on some of her clothing. And I found that after her death. I'd seen it in documentaries, I'd seen it in museums. This was a badge that my grandmother actually wore for many years during the Nazi era. And so that was something that always has been and remains very special to me. I think what I hope people get out of the experience is a little bit of education in terms of history, but mostly a real positive sense of the human spirit, and that people can endure, and not only endure, but succeed and thrive by going through difficult times and coming out the other end. And so I hope that it's a positive message that comes out of this.